Honey Heist, Illimat, and Roman Roll. This is Staying In.
This evening, gentlemen, in between making dinner, my wife and I partook on our very first bite of the latest and greatest peanut butter creation to come from... I mean, I don't know who makes these things up, but they might be unhinged slightly. I don't know. Obviously, Marmite peanut butter has become a staple in our house.
It literally affixes, like, pictures to walls.
Yeah.
And
when I need to bind documents together, then it's Marmite peanut butter. You just can't get enough of that savoury, salty taste. But now, the great minds of peanut butter have created crunchy nut peanut butter.
Now, is that crunchy nut as in kind of like chocolate, or crunchy nut as in crunchy nut cornflakes?
Crunchy nut cornflakes. What's crunchy nut chocolate?
Isn't that... It's like... Oh, I'm thinking of whole nut like Cadbury's.
Are you thinking of fruit and nut?
No, I was thinking... No, I mean, technically, also probably fruit and nut fits into that category. I was thinking whole nut, and I just messed up. I made a mistake. What can I say?
It's Kellogg's branded crunchy nut peanut butter.
That's a catchy title.
well, I am genuinely interested in this.
And I am genuinely horrified because I dislike all components of this.
Now, we tried it this evening before dinner. I don't know why, and like
What, just on a blini?
yeah, well, it wasn't a crumpet, which I guess is a poor man's blini. So
that's how they market it.
And I tell you what, finally, someone has invented a peanut butter for dessert. Like, it's not overly sweet. Like, the peanuts are honeyed before they're put into the butter, but you couldn't eat it for breakfast. You couldn't eat it for a snack, but for dessert, I could hopefully have myself some crunchy nut peanut butter. Definitely. It's really weird. We both sort of turned to each other and went, "This is a dessert thing."
Is it like that chocolate sweet thing that begins with a P? What's it called?
Praline.
Praline, yeah. Is it like praline?
A little bit. I mean, I don't like praline. To be honest, I think nuts and fruit in chocolate are a terrible waste of...
I agree.
...space where chocolate could be. But
in your tummy.
Yeah, it kind... but it's just like, it's not overly sweet, but it's like surprising. It's the same way that have you ever had cereal as a snack rather than, for breakfast?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I was a kid, yeah.
Yeah. Well, even now, it's just like, it's kind of like that. It's spreading into that realm of territories. It's not something that you would have for breakfast. It's not something that you would have exclusively for a meal. It is that kind of fancy a snack. Something with a little bit that's a little bit more interesting than just peanut butter. It's crunchy nut peanut butter.
So Sam, how many different meals or kind of meals of the day would you allow cereal to be had? Because obviously breakfast is fine. You've just said snacks there. We're bringing desserts into this now that cereal is allowed. How many different meal types are you gonna let kind of cereal in on?
I think I could have cereal for every meal. There are enough different types of cereal for variety, but also to try and replicate the different meals of the day.
Oh my gosh.
I reckon I could do it. Some sort of absurd charity challenge where all I can eat is cereal for a month. There's bound to be some sort of celebrity diet, which is just like,
the Kellogg's Sunday roast.
My wife was watching this program the other day. Have you ever seen it? It's called Secret Eaters.
No.
And it's this program where there's this bunch of people go on it, and they're just like, "Oh, I eat healthy. I've got no idea why I'm putting on weight." And they film them over the course of the week, and they basically like reveal that like, well, the salad you had for lunch was great, but it was this sausage roll you had in bed before you went to sleep, which is probably why you're putting on a little bit of weight.
Is that the one where they kind of follow people? They've snuck out in the middle of the night to go to the Tesco and they've got themselves like a wrap or something. They just scoff it outside and they're like, "Oh, that's what it was." And then you went to McDonald's and you had that.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah,
came
you
home and
forgot
yes,
about
you
the
did
Big
have
Mac.
a protein bar, but that wasn't going to undo all the bad work.
So there was this guy on it, and he was just like, and they asked him, do you feel like your breakfasts are very healthy? And he was like, oh yeah, I have Special K. And it showed him like, filling up this bowl of Special K. Now, if you've ever calorie controlled or calorie counted and ever had like a proper portion of cereal, like it is minuscule, like it's, it really isn't what you really need in a morning. But he was filling up this bowl, like probably like 90 grams of Special K. And then he broke over it like strawberries, put in some banana, and then and then he pours over single cream. And I just think at that point, how can you not put two and two together and realise that...
And and a glacier cherry on top.
Yeah, just like, well,
Cream's the same as milk. It's the same colour. Keep them both in the fridge.
It's just thicker milk, isn't it?
I'm surprised there was any space for the cream.
Oh, I just love the fact that, like, because it's Special K, it means you can have, like, single cream for free. Like, it cancels each other out. Oh, brilliant. I love it.
Oh, Sam, I very much enjoyed...
What have I done?
Oh,
What did
no,
you do?
it's nothing bad at all. I was just saying, I'm a bit worried that you're kind of just on the defensive, and actually I'm wanting to congratulate you once again for a wonderful evening we spent with our RPG. As we've mentioned, Pete isn't here today, and he usually runs the RPG, and we gave him a little bit of time off, and you very kindly and deftly stepped in and ran a one-off for us.
I did.
Tremendous fun.
Yeah, it's something. It's a one-off that I've wanted to do for quite a while. It's called Honey Heist, and quite often you get things that like say, oh, this one-off one-page RPG, and it never really turns out to be like just one page. But Honey Heist is actually just like it literally is like two sides of an A4 piece of paper, and that's all we needed to run this game. I mean, you can go onto itch.io and Grant Howitt's page there, and you can still download like the original hand-drawn version of the Honey Heist rules, which is incredible. It's like literally is like back of a fag packet, serviette in a cafe kind of creativity. That's not to denigrate it in any way. It's
No, I love that.
I really value that kind of creativity that seems to spark from somewhere, and they've gone to efforts to really preserve that. Like upstairs in a drawer somewhere, I've got a paragraph of writing that I think was written by Anthony Horowitz. He was a guest in a studio that I was working in, and between like news bulletins or something, he wrote down this like paragraph of a story, and I was cleaning up the studio afterwards, and I picked it up and I've kept it. And like I've always like loved the fact that I've got this like original bit of like Anthony Horowitz writing that like someday I hope that I could like maybe do something with, like spark off. And like it feels the same like when you look at this sort of sketched idea from for Honey Heist, that it just feels like something really organic and creative, and it really does inspire you to like make the best out of it and to really take on that creative challenge, because really there are no real rules to it. I mean, it's probably the simplest RPG I've ever prepared for, but yet it got some of the best results.
And actually, it actually really lends itself well for a one-off. I think for a one-off, you want something where it's tight in places, isn't it? In its framework, it has a very simple rule set up in the sense that there's not too many rules, and actually, it's about having that framework in place for you to be able to kind of run amok, as it were. And that was really quite nice, because actually Pete's done a wonderful job as well in that regard. But that's obviously has to be sustained over a longer period. It's a bigger campaign, say, for example. So there's a little bit more rules to kind of take on board there. Here, what I quite liked was not only did you kind of pick the optimum moment to do this, but actually you manage to enfold it within the actual other RPG we're doing, which is quite nice, actually, which was something I wasn't expecting.
That was something I wanted to do from the start, and it's made a bit difficult by the rules. But as I said, you do feel like all he's really giving you is kind of like a sort of starting point for you to go off on. So how Honey Heist works is, and this is like right in the sort of the top of the page of the PDF. It says, it's HoneyCon 2017. You are going to undertake the greatest heist the world has ever seen. 2 things. 1, you have a complex plan that requires precision timing. And 2, you're a goddamn bear. And that's a setup for the whole thing. Everyone rolls 3 dice, and that tells them what kind of bear they are, gives them a bit of their character, informs a bit of like the role that they'll play in the heist. And then the GM rolls another set of 3 dice, and that sort of determines, where the convention is, what the ultimate prize is that the bears are trying to attain, and a secret sort of subplot that's going underneath that the bears are not aware of. And that's like the whole setup. And the bears only have 2 stats. There's bear and there's criminal. And you start off with a game, each bear has 3 points in each. And as they're going through the mission, whenever they do something bearish, so like, for example, mauling something or scaring someone or, eating honey or whatever, they roll against that stat. So they'll roll a d6, and if they roll a number that's equal to or lower than their current bear stat, which at the start is 3, they will succeed in what they're trying to do. If the GM deems that they succeed really well, or their plan goes off without a hitch, it's in the rules that they're essentially becoming more and more like a criminal and less bear-like. So they'll move a point from bear into criminal. So now, if you were taking it from the start, there'll now be 4 points in criminal and 2 in bear. And the same is said for criminal. So when you're doing a criminal action, which is something pretty much not associated with a bear at all, and you try and do a criminal action, if you succeed on that or if you fail, it's said that the bear gets really, really frustrated, so therefore becomes more like a bear. So they move a point from criminal to bear. If the bears ever get to 6 points in one stat, then they either become completely feral bears and run away, or they become criminal masterminds and kind of just take over the show. And like that's it. And we didn't have to set it in the fantasy game that we're playing, but there's really little that I had to do to transpose it into that world. And it's just as like, you're literally unleashing. We had 6 bears trying to steal a briefcase of honey from this medieval fair, and it's that, like, that's all you need as like a prompt. You're a bear and you've got to try and do something ultimately very, very unbearish, and in a world that doesn't really bend to your will. Like, there's no, like, you can communicate as a group of bears, but beyond that, the world is still the world. Like, humans are scared of bears. Humans cannot understand bears. A bear in the middle of a marketplace is going to cause suspicion. But what I think I love about the game what I love about the game most is it kind of understands that even though that's how the world is set up, there is just the deftest hint in the rules that you can be silly by the fact that there is one table on the front page which is just called the bonus hat table, and you essentially roll 1d8 and it tells you what kind of hat your bear will wear. And I just love what that informs, and what that tells the players is that, like, yeah, you're a group of bears and you're trying to do this heist in a very real and human world, but still you've got a fez on, so maybe it's not all that serious. Have some fun.
Yeah, you don't have to like deep dive role play as a bear.
Dan, you were our dowsing rod, weren't you? Because that was your specialist skill as your bear. What kind of bear were you again? Because we were all different types of bear, weren't we?
I was a sun bear. I was a sun bear and I had a special skill which was sensing honey. So to be fair, I think it kind of plays into some of what you're saying there. As I was imagining kind of the game as we were playing it, I imagined it as a cartoon. So the point where kind of my bear is kind of sniffing and trying to find the honey and then smells the honey. I imagine it like in those cartoons, like the hound who smells something, and suddenly, like as straight as an arrow, his kind of body goes rigid. That's how I imagined it. I think that, as you said, that kind of played into everything that I thought about with this. I thought about if he's smelling this honey, it's literally those visible smell lines wafting through the air, kind of going up his nose, and all of those things just kind of eases you into it in a sense of kind of, I'm not taking this seriously. I'm here just to have some fun with it. We're bears wearing hats. That's as much as you need to know without kind of, you're not thinking, okay, so I'm a bear. What would a bear do in real life? If this was a bear, well, he would do this and this and this. He'd be scared of this. You don't think about that because you're wearing a hat and a scarf, and for some reason that makes people think you're human. It was really good fun, and I think just the way it's presented naturally prevents you from taking it too seriously, which I think is really valuable in a one shot like this.
No, but it's interesting you say that, Dan, because actually I was late to getting that, because I was a polar bear, and straight away I was thinking, well, polar bears don't tend to eat honey, so I was trying to think of what would be my what's in it for me as this bear, as whose actual kind of specialist skill is they're a thief. You know, why do I want to be stealing honey? Until Sam kind of, well, through the magic of Zoom, took me to one side and said, look, you're just a bear. You just imagine in this world, Chris, you really like honey. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and oh yeah, and also I can actually speak. Yeah, of course, yeah. So actually from then on, it was great. And actually, even though it may seem quite loose and playful and fancy free, genuinely that very simple table of, you know, there's two things of bear and criminal was just enough. It was perfect, because there are moments where I remember, like, there was somebody offering honey samples around, and I looked at my stats and I was 5 bear, 1 criminal. If I just had a little bit of that, I would have gone full on bear, become feral and left. And it was a really nice dynamic, and it meant that all of us weren't just like, you know, when a child starts joining a football team and all they do is they follow the ball around. They don't know what a formation is. They don't know how to think. They just all follow the ball. What that meant was this stat here for us meant that we weren't all constantly going for the honey at the same time and competing with each other. It meant that everyone had their kind of moment to be a bear and everyone had their moment to be a criminal, which I really, really liked.
Yeah, I think what Dan said about it being like a cartoon is pretty much absolutely spot on. Like, you know, in Hanna-Barbera cartoons or like Tom and Jerry, where Tom and Jerry do some very outlandish cartoony things, but they've still got a very human owner who acts very human and behaves, you know, as a human. And also like in Scooby-Doo, which is like the weirdest, has a talking dog in it, for Christ's sake. But yet whenever they capture one of the people who's pretending to be a ghost, they're like running very human extortion scams, or like insurance, or they're committing insurance fraud. Like it is that Hanna-Barbera like mix of this is stupid, silly cartooning, but also there's like some very real and weirdly serious human elements to each of those.
I think my highlight was probably Richard's bear, who ate the person who was offering out the free samples. Yes. Mm-hmm. And who ate the person whole, and our other colleague, our other friend Greg, would try to meet him halfway by eating the other end, joining at the feet, and trying to meet in the middle in some kind of weird version of Lady and the Tramp and the spaghetti. It was just hilarious. Really, really good fun. It's lovely, isn't it, when you've got something that works. It's not all hype, and it really does work.
So if you were going to reduce a cereal down to another condiment, what would you pick?
It's a great question.
That's a searching question, that is.
I know, like, you know, Rice Krispie spread, you know, Cocoa Pops ketchup. I don't know. Could have Frosty's toothpaste.
Okay, we can do this. I'm going to say either the two I'm blending is Squirty cream and Sugar Puffs.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, actually, no, they're not called Sugar Puffs anymore. They're called Honey Monster Puffs. Genuinely, that's the brand name that they're called now.
Sugar is bad.
Yeah.
No, I quite like Squirty cream as a vehicle. I'm down with that. I think you could have shredded wheat garnish. So on some Asian dishes, you could, like, sometimes they put fried onions on top of Asian dishes. You could have like a fried onion but shredded wheat styled garnish.
I don't know. If I was making sushi and somebody told me we've run out of nori paper crisp, but don't worry, we've got the shredded wheat.
Yeah, but it's a slippery slope from there, because then someone says, "Oh, I'm going to shredded wheat." Oh, we do have shreddies. Can that work? Can that work?
It's a great exercise, and I know now that this is all I will be thinking about for the rest of the week. Mm-hmm. Trouble sleeping.
If you could turn a cereal into another condiment, what would you choose? That's the question. I think Dan's given a great answer, but also maybe the perfect answer, which is cereal plus squirty cream.
and that guy
that
guy could put it on his Special K completely.
Yeah, he'd be blown away.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought as a kid that they should sell the milk. They should make Cocoa Pops in a factory and then sell the milk from that as like a chocolate milk, like a Cocoa Pops branded milkshake.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that was always my idea, but it's never took off. Never took off.
I mean, Ricicles would really work as an equivalent to like hundreds and thousands, like over the top of an ice cream. Could you imagine? That'd be quite nice.
Yeah, I think you could do, because I know that Heinz actually released recently salad cream ice cream.
What?
Yeah, so I think that it's not out of the realms of possibility that, just like when you go camping as a kid, you always took those multi-pack variety packs of cereal. You could have the same thing, but it's like ice cream toppers. So special like Cocoa Pops or like Ricicles or like little crushed up bits of Frosty. You know, you can make it at home, but you're always going to buy the branded version at the supermarket because they always taste better. Well, there's a brewery near where I work called the Seven Brothers Brewery, and also where I work is the Kellogg's factory. And I used to live not far away from the Kellogg's factory, and it took me about a year to realise why every Sunday it really smelled like popcorn. I just never put two and two together that they might be roasting cornflakes. I just always thought it smelled like a cinema, but they actually make beer using some of the like the cornflakes and the Rice Krispies and Cocoa Pops they don't use. So they make a stout using Cocoa Pops, which is really, really incredible, and like make an IPA using Rice Krispies and a lager using cornflakes. It's really good. They're great.
I mean, to make it a truly symbiotic relationship, though, surely it should also go the other way.
Beer flavoured cornflakes. or in some sort of horrible like cereal cannibalism, you're pouring the stout flavoured beer using Cocoa Pops over the Cocoa Pops.
Just that the logo on the box is Tony the Tiger slumped over a bowl. Just his head in it.
They're groggy.
I'm going to be sick.
See, I resisted getting an external storage for a while. For no particular, I wasn't resisting because I didn't want one. It's just kind of like I never got around to it. I didn't think I really needed it. And eventually got to the point where like I got a couple of games on my PS4, which would just take up the entirety of my PS4. And I'd got my VR, and so I wanted quite, because VR games tend to be smaller, but I wanted quite a lot of them on there, so I got lots of choices. So I ended up just not being able to get everything I wanted in there. So I eventually invested in kind of getting like a 1 terabyte hard drive, which actually wasn't that expensive, and kind of plugged it in.
Good choice.
And I was able to basically just move all of my games that I regularly play onto there. And you have no idea the freedom that just having all of your games, like without having to download anything, I mean, potentially updates and stuff, but without having to download them, without having to click onto it, like, oh, I can't play it for 3 hours because my internet's crap. All of it's there at any time. I've got all the games that we play, any kind of multiplayer game, I've got them ready to go. So there's never a kind of situation where we say, oh, what should we play? Oh, I haven't got that downloaded. I'm not going to be able to get that in time. I mean, because I know Pete said in the past he didn't want to get one, because I think he talked before about not wanting to get one because he'd eventually get a PS5, and so didn't want that. But I found out these external drives, they carry over, so you can just plug one of them into the next. So there was no downside to it. And when I kind of realised all of that stuff, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to invest it. I found one that I like the look of, and I invested in it. It has just kind of changed. It seems really weird and really dated to be saying this now, but it has changed the way I kind of play games, because I'm not having to pick and choose what I play at a time. I don't have to kind of focus in on 2 games perhaps that I can play, because the other one's going to take me an hour or an hour and a half just to get myself in a position to play them.
Yeah, I've extended my storage. I even on the PS3 extended the storage internally. So I opened that bad boy up and I put in a new hard drive, and because I'm really security conscious, upstairs in a box somewhere in an attic is still a white bubble wrapped envelope which on the outside it says in black marker, like, Sam's PS3 hard drive, old brackets.
Just in case you want to go back to it at some point.
Well, no, because I didn't want to dump it in a landfill and someone plugs it in and goes, "Oh, we didn't complete much of Abe's Odyssey." So I've extended both the PS3 and I think I did the PS4 very, very early on. Obviously extended the Switch. Yeah, the Switch was easy to do because that's just an SD card. The PS Vita was awful because they had, like, I don't know if you remember, like, Sony developed their own memory cards for them, and it was like something like 50 quid to get 8 gigabytes more of memory. Like, it was ridiculous. But I agree with you, Dan. Like, having that freedom is really good, and being able to, like, jump from game to game, and, like, that is now, like, the sort of buzz term for the Xbox Series X and the PS5 is that for some reason mad people want to be able to, like, literally jump instantly from one game to another, like 6 games at a time. I do like it. I feel like sometimes it's a bit like Netflix, where because you've got all this storage, you've got like 15 games. We're like, no, not that, not that, not that.
See, what I like, I mean, the two sides of it is, as I said before, around the multiplayer stuff, because I don't usually play those by myself, so I like having them all just ready to go if the whim takes us that we want to play on, I don't know, Ghost Recon Wildlands or something like that. That the kind of the whim takes me that way. And then I've got a selection of games that I will play which maybe fit different moods. Because I've got a 7-week-old, and so gaming is kind of vastly reduced as a result. But what I have found is that I'll play some games quite late at night when I'm up with her, so she'll be kind of asleep or falling asleep on the sofa, and I'll play some games to kind of keep myself awake. And I've tended to gravitate towards a couple. So I've gravitated towards, originally my first thought was, okay, maybe something like Red Dead Redemption 2. My thinking being that it's kind of lots of side quests and lots of like smaller individual kind of quests, and maybe that would be a good way of progressing through. That's not really worked out because there is immediately kind of a big world that I want to explore, and I can't do that in short bursts. So the kind of on the tier down from that, I've moved to so the games I'm playing now. Sam, you will appreciate one of them. Well, you'll probably both appreciate both, but Sam, you will get one. Chris, you'll get the other. Tends to be either FIFA 20 or Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Because those are the two that I've kind of fallen on. What I've with FIFA, for the first time, and this to anybody who's played FIFA, this will sound strange. For the first time, I've kind of entered into the world of Ultimate Team and tried to figure out what that is.
Daniel.
I have to say, I have no clue what's going on. There are so many challenges and tasks and quests and all these different stuff I've tried to get. And I get cards, and I don't know why I'm getting cards or what the cards are for.
Have you not asked your young son what you have to do? Because I feel like it's very much catered to.
He's only 3. I don't want him to be playing like heavily loot boxed games right now. I'm happy he's playing his CBeebies iPad games, which he loves. But yes, I've been playing that and trying to just work my way through that. And do you ever remember? Again, Sam, this is more for you than it would be for Chris, I imagine. Did you ever play like back in the day? Like ISS Pro Evo 2 and stuff like that. Did you play those games then? So do you ever play the mode, the Master League mode, which is like the main kind of mode on there?
Yes.
Ultimate Team kind of reminds me of that sense of having kind of a collection of players that aren't great, but you can build up your team over time and kind of swapping players out. Now there's like so much complexity to Ultimate Team. For my money, too much complexity. I lose track. I just want some players. Let me play with them, and I'll buy some new players if I need them. That's all I really want. But anyway, that's one side of it. The other side of it being Uncharted, Nathan Drake collection. So I managed in 4 sessions, and not long sessions. I managed to blast through the first game, whack it down on easy. I'm now kind of about 15-20% into Uncharted 2, and it's lovely seeing those big jumps between the games. Kind of that first game being still really good, but then seeing like that massive jump it takes up into the second one. And I remember there being a massive jump to the third one, and obviously to the fourth one. I've only ever played the fourth one once, so I'm looking forward to kind of getting past the trilogy and moving on to that one again. I also really enjoy the fact that when I'm playing the Nathan Drake collection, every now and again it pops up in the corner like a statistic update and it tends to be one of you two that I've kind of like. I think yesterday it popped up saying that I killed one less person with explosions than Sam had, or something like that.
Okay, good.
Which surprised me, considering I can see from the stats Sam's only played this once, and this is at least the second time, maybe even third time I've played it. So Sam just kills a lot of people with explosions.
Which one is that?
That's on Uncharted 2.
I've played that game 3 times, but I think the first 2 times was on the original Uncharted 2.
Yeah, so this would just be through the Nathan Drake collection.
Yeah, the third time I played it was the Nathan Drake.
But that's some of the stuff I love, because you can look at all of your stats and you can compare them against kind of friends and stuff. So I look at compared to. It's funny, just you can see from the stats how different people play. So if you were to look at mine, I'm doing it a little bit less now, but you would see I really favour searched a couple of weapons. Like I just favour the handgun because I like doing headshots, and I will just focus purely in on that one single gun. So most of my kills come from that, or maybe the sniper rifle. And it's interesting. You can see someone does lots of melee kills and stuff like that, and you just kind of get a sense just from stats how they've played that game. And then every now and again it pops up that I've overtaken Chris or something in terms of headshots, or I've overtaken Sam with kills by explosion and all that stuff. It kind of adds that little kind of nugget to when you're playing. It's obviously not cooperative, but there is a sense of kind of co-op playing with that, because it feels like you're playing with friends, even though you're absolutely not. And it's like a really nice way to while away those times when I'm looking after the baby quite late at night, perhaps. And I'm not spending a huge amount of time doing it, but because it's on easy, I can get through it quite quickly. There's not a lot of challenge, and it's just, I mean, I love those games anyway. They are my favourite gaming series, and I just can't wait to move on through it again without the worry of, oh, I died again. How do I get through this? I can't get through this. I die so rarely because it's on easy, purposefully so. When I play a game first time, I always play it on normal, and then after that, I just whack it down to the easiest, so I can just have fun with it.
Got nothing to prove.
Absolutely, no. Yeah. As I've said to you many times, normal for me is how the game was meant to be played, and then after that, all bets are off.
Do what you want.
What games have you been playing, Sam? When you've been kind of babysitting's the wrong word because he's your son, but kind of when you're on duty. Yeah.
Mainly stuff on my Switch, because on the Switch you can essentially split the controller. You don't have to sit there with your hands together. So if I've got one arm supporting his head and the other arm supporting his body, I can essentially have my hands crossed over and naturally, but yet still holding the right parts of the
Wow.
of the
So
controller.
it's a logistical thing for you.
Yeah, or I can like be standing up with him, like bouncing him, and have my hands really far apart, but still like controlling the game, like wandering around their living room, just playing FIFA on my Switch, like with my hands quite far apart and just like playing it on my Switch. So it's great. It's the father's way to play.
You're like Chow Yun Fat in Hard Boiled.
Yeah, next I'll be jumping through plate glass windows with my Joy-Con controllers. Yeah, FIFA. I got FIFA 21 because after I had FIFA on the Vita, I banned myself from ever owning a copy of FIFA again. But the only way I lapsed was when one came up cheap, so I bought it so I could play with you, Dan. And I knew that it will be a good paternity game to play, so I got the new FIFA for the Switch. And because of the way that EA runs, it will be the best version of FIFA that will ever be released. So I know I could just keep that game forever, and it will be like perennial. It will never change. But I've actually been playing Lonely Mountains Downhill a lot.
Oh yeah,
Like as a way of like winding down for a day. I know Pete talked about this on a previous podcast, so I don't want to tread over old ground, but it is incredible. Pete was absolutely on the money. Like it is the most
I did look at that
chill.
the other day. I might give that a go.
Yeah, it's the most chill and relaxing experience, and being on the Switch as well, like being able to play it in bed is a joy. And there is nothing more satisfying than doing skids on a bike, and doing it virtually is still just as satisfying. It's brilliant. So we've had him on the podcast before, and he's a good friend of ours. He's on the he's doing the RPG with us all, and it's Richard Simpson from the We're Not Wizards podcast. And recently he's become a bit of a YouTube star. He has a very sort of conventional video style, as in like how he makes up the shots and all that kind of stuff. But he has a very unconventional way of reviewing and like talking about board games, which I absolutely adore. Like, I think I've always said that one of my favourite reviews he's done is he's Scottish, and he reviewed the game Arkwright, pretending to be a Geordie on the phone to his foreman. Like it was great. It's inspired. But he recently put up a video on his We're Not Wizards YouTube channel about the game Roam and Roll from David Churchsey and Nick Shaw, and he described that game as not cheese on toast, but a pizza. And you know when someone says something and you just like it just. You know, it regularly happens to me because my wife is just the perfect person when it comes to like boiling down board game experiences to their actual essence. But when he described the game Roam and Roll as like a pizza to the equivalent of a cheese and toast, like something in me just absolutely resonated with that analogy, because several times on this podcast I've said that I'll talk about Roam and Roll on a future podcast. Like I've been pushing it down the proverbial Roman road in terms of actually wanting to talk about it, because I've had it for a while. Plastic Soldier Company were very, very nice to send us this game after we adored Blitzkrieg. They sent us this, and as a roll and write fan, like I was like enamored by this idea of using a roll and write mechanic of like the idea of recreating Rome and like building Rome up. The idea is that you're playing this after the Great Roman Flood, and the idea is that you're rolling dice, you're assigning things and different values, different parts, and you're building up parts of Rome again. And it has these wonderful like dry white markers and all these like different like player boards, and essentially it's a Euro game but as a roll and write. And what I mean by a Euro game, because I still think it's one of those like very ethereal classifications that we kind of give for board games, I feel like I've kind of landed on the description of a Euro game as something that's very, very personal. There's very, very little player interaction between people playing it, and essentially what you're doing is you're kind of managing and acquiring resources in order to build and make building things easier. So, for example, like Catan is probably the Euro game that most people are familiar with in terms of like you are collecting sheep, wood and brick in order to build buildings, and you build those buildings in places to make the acquisition of more sheep, wood and brick easier, and so on and so on. That's like, and you don't really interact much with the other people that you're playing with, but everyone has a good time. It's very like based in economics, and they tend to be quite serious. So this is like it feels like very much the first time that like a roll and write has been implemented in such like kind of like a heavy way, what we would term like a heavy game. Like we talked about the Lost Words on the last podcast as being like a very light game, which is no way to denigrate it in any way. It's just like, by that we mean, you know, probably won't take that long, not many rules to talk about, still a valid experience, whereas Roam and Roll is like 15, 16 pages of A4, lots of rules, lots to really get through before you start a game. But, you know, Richard is absolutely right. If Ganchon Clever is cheese on toast, then Roam and Roll is a pepperoni pizza. You know when you have a really good pizza and it gives you all you need in one slice, and every single bite of that slice is satisfying right down to the crust? Like, yeah, it's just the perfect analogy for this game, which is kind of like, you know, it just gives you everything that you need in a very, very simple and easy vehicle to eat it in, to play it in. I mean,
Have you had dinner, sir?
I'm just not eating enough crunchy nut peanut butter. But what I mean is, like, whereas cheese and toast is very simple, light, easy to digest thing. Oh, Chris, get me out of this hole, because we played
this together,
together.
And you told me that it was a surprisingly filling game, and you're absolutely right. And because
Sam's very much down the rabbit hole here of food analogies.
I've got to get myself out of this analogy hole.
Traditionally speaking, a roll and write as a genre as a whole, we've waxed lyrical about its versatility, is traditionally seen as being generally on the lighter side because of that mechanic. You roll, and whatever the outcome of that dice is, often you use a marker pen, you've got a dry whiteboard, and you're crossing stuff off, you're adding bits up, and you're kind of going about it that way, really. This has that, so you've got those familiar things that you know. So if you're a fan of roll and writes and you're looking to challenge yourself a little bit more, then this is a great place to go, really. It really genuinely is, because it's not taking you too far out of your comfort zone. It's giving you, as you say, Sam, more of what you love. And what I loved about this particular game is that when you look at your player board, there's a lot of stuff there, but actually that lot of stuff there is actually all you need. It is your aid memoir. It tells you exactly what you need to do. And it's kind of really intuitive. And a little bit as to what Dan was alluding to before, and if Pete was here, he'd push his glasses up his nose and he'd say it's like co-opetition. One of the, these buzzwords that Pete introduces us to from his vast glossary. And it is a bit like that, where I am kind of pitching against Sam, but also I can kind of, if I build my city, my buildings around Rome effectively, I can actually get points in relation to the other buildings of a particular type around me. And it never felt too claustrophobic. I never felt like I was kind of boxed into a corner because, whilst I'm trying to plot my buildings there, I'm also trying to elsewhere connect roads that connect other settlements elsewhere and getting bonuses there. And that kind of modulation between those different areas I found generally really interesting. And it never felt claustrophobic. It always felt like every great Euro game, that the score is always generally quite close. Even when you're playing it for the very first time, you can never really know who's going to run away from it because it always feels very, very close, which is really, really nice. It's sizable. It's chunky in terms of length and scope. Mm-hmm. It's a pizza where you think, oh, I shouldn't have had that last mouthful, but at the same time, you feel quite satisfied. The only difference now is you need to have a nap after you've played it. But it genuinely just really, really works, and it proves Dan's point from a previous pod that roll and write games seem to be the genre that just seems to fit with everything.
Yeah, and it's lovely to play a game that feels like it's giving you so many different options and so many different ideas of what you can do on a turn, and really gets you thinking about stuff, but actually comes in a manageable size box. Like, after years and years and years and years and years of putting it to one side, I finally bought Concordia recently, and I'm really looking forward to being able to safely play it with you, Chris, very, very soon. And like, that is a Euro game in every sense of a word, where it comes in this box, which is, how big is it? It's very slim, but it's very, very wide. Like, it's a kind of box that wouldn't fit. Yeah, like, it's a kind of box. Exactly. It's like the size of a Scrabble, but a little bit bigger than that. It's like one of those when you used to buy those DVDs in the old days that wouldn't quite fit on the shelf with like all the rest of like, someone would do some weird formatting, like when you get like a steel book or something like that, and it just wouldn't quite align with the rest of your, like, Concordia really like sticks out there. It just doesn't quite fit. But all essentially it is this big board and then 200 little wooden tokens in this massive bag. And like, what I love about Rome and Roll is, like, because it applies this roll and write formula, which is you're rolling dice and filling out a sheet of paper, essentially. In this case, it's a dry whiteboard. Like, it doesn't need like all the little wooden sticks representing brick. It doesn't need all the little tokens representing like roads. It doesn't need all like the little wooden houses that represent all the buildings you're going to make. You just mark it all down on a little dry whiteboard that's in front of you. And it means the box is very, very small. And it also means that when it comes to doing like the rules explanations, everything you need to know in terms of like how to play the game can then be put on the sheet in front of you. So even though it is a very complex and it is a very heavy board game to actually play, and like feels like no roll and write game I've ever played, like it actually takes all those things that we're familiar with in terms of that genre and actually uses it as a strength and as a way of like making playing a heavier game actually easier. Like, because you're rolling dice, you don't really have to worry about like a lot of like tactics and strategy, because that part's down to luck, and you know, you roll what you roll and you've got to take your chances when you can get them. And you don't have to worry about remembering lots of rules because they're there on the sheet in front of you, and you don't have to worry about like tracking stuff because you're marking stuff on the sheet in front of you. So it's making that kind of game become very visual and become very like academic might not be the right word, but what I mean is like all the information is just available to you, you know, at all times. So it's very, very easy to make those strategic decisions. It's very, very easy to develop tactics and say, oh, I'm gonna you know, start building these over here. Or I'm gonna start building roads out into these villages. I'm gonna start like trading this stuff here. So it's really very good. I really like it, and it's even got a solo mode as well, which is kind of my jam at the moment. Designed by Nick Shaw, as you said, who also designed the solo mode with Blitzkrieg. He's also worked with Team Autonomer for like Wingspan and Tapestry.
All games that we've discussed on this podcast.
All games we discussed. He's even like, this is the guy who's made a solo variant for The Crew, the Quest for Planet 9, which is a 3-player game. Like he's just like the solo king at the moment. Oh, he's even made a solo mode for Snowdonia.
Have I played Snowdonia solo? I think I may have done, actually.
But yeah, it's I think, as Chris alluded to before, it's kind of, you know, I feel like Roman Roll is the sort of pinnacle of where roll and write games go in terms of actual like how heavy and like how complicated they can be. I feel that now that whole genre has a complete sort of difficulty curve in terms of like the easiest now to something that's a lot more complicated and a lot more like for the gamer's game, as we often you know, that horrible phrase where it's just like, this is a game for gamers. But it really does, like, you're not going to introduce it on Christmas Day and like expect everyone to have a good time. But if like that's your jam, if you really like really drilling down into strategy and tactics, and even if you just like Euro games and you don't like roll and write games, Roman Roll is like, it's still just at a great level, like still just a great Euro game.
So I alluded to a game in the last episode of the podcast. That
I did think of this when I was editing the podcast about how both you and I, Chris, have been like pushing board games and like our opinions on them down the road, like for a couple of episodes, because like especially Roman Roll, like I was really unsure about how to actually talk about it until I heard the pizza analogy. So I'm intrigued to see what your food-based analogy is for Illimat and how it finally
my gosh,
gave you the confidence to talk about it.
Well, it's an interesting one, really, because I played this a while ago. This is pre-lockdown for a friend of a friend, and I've been trying to get a copy of it for myself. And thankfully, through Zatu, I had a little notification when it was going back in stock, so I was able to get it. Because this used to be a kickstart. This was a kickstarted game originally. Yeah, it's only about 3 years old. And it comes from Keith Baker, who designed Gloom, which is a card game we've played.
Yes, yeah, big fans of Gloom.
Yeah, I really love Gloom, with art by Carson Ellis. And it comes from Together Studios. And it's an abstract strategy card game. And probably in terms of the feeling that it captures, and it does it very well, and that's what they intended, was it feels like an old-fashioned, forgotten card game. you're playing it and you're feeling nostalgic, but it's very strange feeling nostalgic for a game that is 3 years old. But it also has a little bit of edge where it feels like it's a game that, you know, John Dee, Queen Elizabeth I mathematician and astrologer would play. There's the occult vibe to it. 2 to 4 players. It's a really weird running time because I've played games of Illimat that can go very quickly. I've played games of it that kind of are quite long. So it can last between a quarter of an hour to a full-blown hour. And I think that obviously depends on player count, really. But one of the reasons why I really like this game is, aside from its mechanics, it's actually its history. And often I don't tend to look into the origins of a game, generally because when I kind of do research for the pod, I'm much more interested in the actual playing of it, I suppose, really. But this one I found particularly interesting because actually the origin of this game comes from a band, the Decemberists, who back in 2009, they had this idea when they did this photo shoot where they would depict themselves as if they were in a secret society or playing this weird board game. And they're big fans of board games. And actually, they when they're on the road touring, they do play board games, like, you know, in between kind of sound checks and stuff like that, which I just love as an image. And if about 6 years later, one of the band members approached this studio, Together Studio, to say, actually, can we make this game that, you know, you worked on just for that one photo shoot? Could we actually make this into a game? And they did. And what could have been easily a gimmick, a tie-in that could have just bombed, has actually become really, really popular. And it's really quite lovely when that happens, where actually, you know, from one art form has kind of given birth to another, really, which I really, really like. And when I say it's a board game, it's a bit of a misnomer, really, because there isn't a board per se. It's a cloth. It's probably the first board game I own where you can actually kind of iron the board if you needed to. And it's really lovely when you kind of drape it over the table. It's like laying a table. There's my meal analogy, Sam. You're laying a table with a cloth, draping it over the table. And it's this black cloth with this kind of white kind of occult kind of set of symbols. It's split into these quadrants with these mysterious symbols. And each quadrant is a field. And what I quite like is the box itself, this wonderful black and white game box. You pop it in the center of it, and that is the Illimat, essentially. And on top of this box, you place these 4 gold metal tokens called ochres, and you've got like a tooth, you've got like a bathtub, you've got a feather. It took me back to the Monopoly pieces. You'd have these strange, incongruous items that you'd be kind of using to go around the board. And the second reason why I like this game, aside from its origins, is the fact that it is a beautiful marriage of card game and board game. So it went down an absolute storm with my family, because I grew up in a family where we had board games, but the board games were what we played as kids primarily. My parents would play card games, and they'd kind of play those kind of grown-up games with, you know, like Scrabble and Rummikub with their mates. It's only been in the last few years where we've actually, when we've gotten together, we've played board games, for want of a better word. And what I mean by that is more recent board games. So what's really quite nice about this is I think it is a great game to play with those who understand how a card game works. It's rhythm. But also for those who like the rhythm of a board game, that sense of chance, a little bit of variability there as well. You can't game the game per se, because the strategies are a little bit up in the air and in flux because they're contingent on certain chance things happening, which I'll get on in a bit.
Like, I think the feeling I had playing it was, for some reason, I just felt like I was in a casino. I don't know why that was. Like, whether it's like the cloth mat that gives you that sort of, you know, that feeling that you're playing on baize. Yeah. Which it is very different to playing on the, you know, this is the table I eat off. I feel that helps. Like the tarot-sized cards, this like bespoke deck it makes, and like this the way that the box acts like a turntable in the middle of in the center of the table as well, to indicate how the seasons are sort of moving around. It really felt like it was the same trappings of playing a game in the casino. And I guess you're right in terms of what you're saying, Chris, in terms of that marriage of like what a board game is and what a card game is the same that, it's the same way that some people just sit down and play, 21 or blackjack. There's people who sit down and play blackjack, but then there are people who sit down and play blackjack.
Yeah.
And Illimat definitely feels like that. At first you feel like, oh, this is a nice, jaunty little, card game, and, I'm putting down that thing there and picking up this thing here. And suddenly it dawns on you that there is a lot more beneath this thing, and it really does a great job of slowly unveiling those layers. And I think that's helped by the fact that, just like in a casino, things are generally played in rounds. And again, like that sort of casino experience, is that you learn very quickly from what other players are doing. So when we played, Chris, after the first round, you were like, oh, I've scored 9 points. And I was like, I've scored 1. But I was very quickly able to tell and pick up on, oh, I can see what Chris was doing. Oh, I see when, he played that card, and that's a good thing to do. So I'm gonna start doing that thing. It's the same way that you would see, like, oh, that guy's stuck on 18, and that seems, rather than carrying on drawing cards, that seems like I'll start doing that now, and that'll give me some results. So it has that, same feeling of that same sort of appeal to me. It was a really strange experience, and I don't know why that it came into my mind, but that's what the game feels like.
It's interesting because, and maybe it is that sense. I do feel you feel like a bit like a croupier when you're dealing cards onto that cloth board.
Yes.
Yeah, because essentially you deal the cards, and there's a sense of a ritual. You deal the cards into each of these 4 fields, these kind of quadrants, and you deal cards to the players. And these feel familiar. You've got numbers and faces, but instead of 4 suits, you've got 5, and you kind of remove one of those suits when you're playing a 2 to 3 player game. But in each corner, as Sam alluded to, you have a tarot card which you put face down, and this is called a luminary card, which I'll get onto a bit. And it's very simple mechanically. On the surface, you've got 3 things you can do. You can sow a card, so leaning into that kind of agricultural field, theme, where you put a card into a field face up. You can harvest a card, or you can stockpile a card. So when you harvest a card, you basically take a card from a field that matches one that's in your hand. Very simple. And you put that in a harvest pile, both of those cards. Stockpiling is the trickiest action to kind of wrap one's head around. But broadly speaking, it's about creating piles of cards that you may be able to harvest in the future. So you're kind of investing in that field now with a hope that somebody else won't take that by the time it comes around to you and you want to harvest. And the aim of the game is to get the most points. You primarily get that by collecting cards in your harvest pile. And that generally sounds like a very standard card game. However, what I like about it is, because I've played lots of games growing up in my family, like Pontoon and all this kind of stuff. And there's always that one person who just knows what to look for. They're counting the cards in their head. They know the probability. They know the strategy it works, and they stick to it, and they always win. And after a while, that's really infuriating. This is a game where you cannot really do that fully because there are these twists in the game. And as Sam alluded to, one of these is a literal twist because you have the Illimat, this box. The box rotates because on each side of the box represents a different season. And each season has a particular rule in terms of what you can and can't do. So if the box is if the field, the side of the box connected to a field is autumn, that means you cannot sow any cards into that field, so you can't put anything in there. On the winter side, you cannot harvest. In spring, you cannot stockpile, but in summer, you can do everything. So, and every time a player puts a face card pile into a field, even if they're harvesting or sowing, whatever season that is on that card, the box immediately rotates to that. So, I could be planning, okay, I've stockpiled something here. Great, on my round, I'll harvest that. Oh no, Sam has just played that face card there. The box has rotated. That field is now winter. I cannot do anything. So what I love about that is that it stops those people who are always at the end, in those kind of card games who kind of game the game. And I really quite like that fact. Also, when you clear a field, the first person to clear a field of cards, that's when that tarot card in the corner of the field gets flipped over, and that is your luminary card. And these have some really interesting kind of archetypal names. It feels very pagan, like a tarot card, such as the Forest Queen. And they kind of give you certain abilities there and then. So when the Forest Queen is flipped over, until that card is then removed, it's always summer in that field. You don't rotate the box, it stays summer.
The first one I flipped over was the Newborn, and I thought it's like one of those moments where I just oh my God, the game is speaking to me, which is great. Which further enhances kind of like the spooky, ethereal feeling it has anyway.
Yeah, and they're beautiful, beautiful images. They feel like really ornate, something you want to frame on your wall. And and the whole game, I should say, I know I harp on about aesthetics, but the materiality of this, the textures of the cloth, those chunky metallic ochre tokens on the box, the artwork is just resplendent. It is utterly gorgeous, and it feels ritualistic. It feels like you're enacting something of a ritual when you're playing it, and that also leans into that kind of pagan sense of nature and the seasons and the cycles, and it just feels right. Your scoring token is a pebble. It's a white pebble which you move around the side of the cloth. It's just lovely. So yes, you've got these luminary cards. They have these different abilities. In fact, the one that you alluded to there, Sam, the Newborn, when you flip that over, it automatically flips the luminary over on the other side. And players will get ochre tokens if they're the first to clear a field or when they take the card. And each luminary card you take, an ochre token gives you a point at the end of the game. And when all the cards in your hand are spent and all the ones from the draw pile are spent, that's the end of the round, and you keep playing, resetting and doing rounds until you get a player up to 17 points. And scoring's really interesting because you can actually lose points, which I really love as well. So even if I'm running away with the game at some points, there's a chance that I could lose points because you score points for getting the most cards at the end of each round. You also score points for getting the most of a certain suit, but you also lose points for getting the most of a certain suit. So you're thinking about that when you're playing as well. So the scoring feels quite balanced as a consequence. And yeah, it's a perfect game for a kind of a mixed bag of players who like the card games, some preferring board games. It has an expansion which came out the same year, which I bought immediately. And I'm putting my hands up here, I just wanted more luminary cards. And what I love with the Cranewife expansion is that every time I play Illimat, I can actually play every time, and I've played it a number of times. I never get a repeat of luminary cards. It always feels like the exact amount. And I've played it 2-player, I've played it 3-player. We've always exhausted all the luminary cards by the end of the game, which is a really nice, satisfying feeling, really. So yeah, I can highly recommend it if you want something that will make people go, ooh, when you reveal that on the table.
Yeah.
That's something it's not quite a light game that you want to play in between games, but it's not quite a heavy game because, as I said before, it depends largely on the luminary cards that are flipped, because sometimes you'll play a game where only one luminary card will be flipped in a round. Other times all 4 of them will flip, and it's just quite manic, and it's crazy, and the game picks up a pace, particularly if you've got a luminary card that eats cards as you're playing. But it's really lovely. It feels very grandiose, and particularly this time of year, it's a great surefire gift for somebody, definitely. And actually, that I discovered it through somebody who'd received it as a gift because they'd seen it and said, "Oh, you'll like this." That was yet another episode of Staying In with Sam Turner, Daniel Frost, and myself, Chris Darby. Big thank you to the Plastic Soldier Company for sending us a review copy of Roman Roll. Public information, stayinginpodcast.com is where you need to go to plug yourself into the social feeds and keep your fingers on our pulses. If you want to drop us an email, stayinginpod@gmail.com is our address. Please let us know what cereal you think would make a lovely dinner. Till next time, bye.